What is the right framework to use to tell your story on a webinar? We're going to jump into the perfect webinar story selling framework in just a second. Before we do, though, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss a video that will make you money. You can also grab my free course on webinars in the description. 5 worksheets, 5 videos that show you exactly how to get started with a webinar that sells for your business. Okay, so the very first time that I spoke on stage in front of people, I didn't use stories at all. I literally just stood up on stage and I was like, I am going to give them as much value as I can. I started teaching and teaching and teaching. I went through everything that I knew. And when I would look out, I would see some people trying to take notes. I would see other people that were falling asleep. And I would see some people just sitting there with a blank stare on their face. And I was like, well, I'm doing everything I can. I'm sure if I teach them as much as I can, they'll see the value that I provide and they'll come hire me for my services, which at the time was business growth consulting. When I got done with that presentation, I had 3 or 4 people who came up to me and told me that it was a great presentation. They had taken a ton of notes. I went back to my booth and people came by. A few of them said, thank you. You provided a ton of value. But for the most part, nothing happened. I didn't book a single client from that speech, nor did I sell anything. And I was left scratching my head trying to figure out why. Well, I want you to think about this for a second. I want you to go back to high school or college, and I want you to think of your favorite teacher. And then I want you to think of all the other teachers. And I want you to think of what their class was like. Normally, you would go into a class, right? And the teacher would just teach and teach and teach. And you would put your head down, fall asleep, you'd pass notes, you'd talk to somebody, or you'd run out the back door. The teacher that you absolutely loved, though, was highly engaging. They told stories, they got to know you, and they probably taught less, but you remembered more because it was more engaging. That's the secret of using stories in your webinar. So what stories do you need to use and where do they go? That's what I'm going to go over in just a second. So what stories do you need to use and where do they go in your webinar? Let's jump into it. The first story that you need is a client success story. So this is more than a testimonial. This shows the pain that they went through, how they solved it, what their life is like now that they've moved beyond that. You want to have one of these stories in the first 30 to 45 seconds of your webinar. This shows the people who are on the webinar, who are watching, the outcome that they can expect. It shows that you know what you're talking about. You were able to help a client get somewhere, as well as framing the outcome that they will get at the end. So this is the first story that you want to use 30 to 45 seconds in. You want to have 10 to 15 of these spread throughout the webinar, but the first one, right at the very beginning, after you get off your title slide, you want to show people, hey, this is the result that I get for people. The second story that you want to use is your hero's journey story. So your hero's journey story is a longer version of how you earned it or learned it. Probably both. This story takes somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, and it goes towards the front half of your webinar. You usually want to get to this somewhere after you've told a client journey and after you've talked a little bit about what you're going to be covering. You want to go through the story of how you earned it or learned it, why you're passionate about sharing your message. This lets people know, hey, this person put the time in, they put the work in, they definitely became an authority in the space. Now, the other thing that your hero's journey does that is super powerful, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're up here on a mountain, and if you're just shouting down at people and telling people what they should do, they aren't going to listen all that much. They're going to see you as an authority figure, and they're going to be like, yeah, I get it. And they might take 1 or 2 tidbits away. But if instead you start down here at the bottom and you show them that you were where they are now, and you went on a journey and became the guru on the mountain, they will trust you a whole lot more, and they'll see that you went through the trials and tribulations to gain the knowledge that you are now sharing with them. So that's your hero's journey story. That goes in, I would say, about 8 to 9 minutes into your webinar. You want to be talking about your hero's journey. The third story that you want to be using is your product story. Now, the product stories are what go in your teaching points in your webinar. So you want to show people your product or service, and you want to show them how you earned, learned, or designed that product. In your teaching points, you want a story that is built around the knowledge that you have. Now, you play second string to that main product or service. So it needs to have you in the story so that they understand that you're connected to it, but the product or service becomes front and center. How was it designed? Why was it designed? What pain points did that product or service come out of? And then how have people used it successfully? This ties in your hero's journey and your customer story, but the product or service is front or center. Those are the frameworks that I use in every webinar that I build for clients and my own. And it always gets people leaning in. It gets people interested in what you're doing and gets them excited about the product or service that you're selling. Do you have questions about this? Leave them in the comments down below. I'll be happy to answer them for you. While you're down there, you can grab my free course on webinars in the description. 5 videos, 5 worksheets to get you started on the road to success with webinars. Till next time, take action, change lives, and make money. I'll see you soon.